the main thing about trees and pots, I'll tell you is this one I just watered real good, but the thing about trees and pots is if they've been in the pot for too long, they want to continue to grow new roots. And if those new roots have nowhere to grow, they end up dying off. So what you'll see here is a root-bound coral bark Japanese maple. And really all that needs to be done to it is the root ball teased and it put into nice fresh soil, and that's just going to keep them thriving in their pots. It's something that's good to do every couple of years if you are keeping your trees in pots. So I like to come in here and get these roots broken up with this rake, and you don't want to be too aggressive. If you have some that are tangled on the bottom, you just kind of scrape away from the bottom of the tree. Go like this. Break them up a bit. And the whole goal is to mostly just get it to where the roots aren't growing in a tangled direction again. So that way when you do put it either in the ground or in another pot, it's not growing roots in a circular direction. So that's the biggest reason why you want to come in here and tease the roots, whether you're doing a full repot, like I say, or putting it in the ground. It's just one of the main steps you don't want to miss. So the next thing I like doing is, after I tease the roots, I like coming in here with a hose and just trying to rinse out some of the old soil and get some fresh water on these roots that haven't been exposed to oxygen for a little while, or sometimes there's dry spots in the interior, but in this tree's case there's not really any dry spots in the interior. It just needs some of the old soil rinsed out of there. So what I'm going to be doing here is I might even take the shower head off just so I can kind of get a little bit more of a aggressive stream on there. And this doesn't hurt the tree at all. It's just a matter of not cutting too many roots this time of year. You can tease the roots just fine, and it actually stimulates the tree a little bit more during the growing season. And coming in here at the top of the root ball and spraying it off like this helps you expose some of the good nabari roots that you want to see, the structural roots. So it's another reason I like coming in here, expose some of those roots and get a lot of this old soil out of here. And it'll just help with when we put it in fresh soil, it's coming into contact with all fresh soil, fresh dirt, all the way around. So we've gotten the roots all teased up and they're fanning out, hanging down, rinsed a lot of the old soil, and there's a lot of little osmocote pellets too that are probably from the nursery, I would say, from when I got this tree. But this coral bark I've been slowly, cutting down year after year. You have to do it in sessions when you're trying to create bonsais. You can't just go full force all the way straight down to the trunk. But over the course of time, this thick trunked tree is going to be very small and compact. So considering that, I don't want to put it in too large of a pot. So I'm going to go and look around for a couple pots in my dirty pot collection, clean one of them up, and get back to it. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you guys want to see in some of my next videos. I love to come out here and figure out different things I can try and share that may teach you something. So if you're learning, let me know what you're learning. If you're not learning and you want to learn, let me know what I can do to help you learn more about trees. So, well, I went to go get my pot, and I realized I already had one. So I'm actually just going to be putting this thing back into the pot that it came out of, because like I say, I'm training it into a bonsai. So I'm really not trying to promote any new root growth. I just want to get it in fresh soil. So in some cases, when you're putting trees in pots where you're trying to keep the root system small too, you don't necessarily have to fill the pot all the way to the lip, you know? Like I usually fill them right below the lip here. You can leave the top of the root ball right here. You just want to make sure you're not covering the trunk, because then come winter you can come in and trim the roots and get them shrunken down so the tree's height doesn't get bigger. So if you are trying to keep trees in pots, that's the main thing, is that you can't just trim the tree over a course of years and expect the tree to be fine. At some point, even though the tree's in a pot and you're trimming the tree, you're gonna have to repot it or put it in the ground. So this is the steps I take to not have to plant my trees in the ground, because at some point I'm sure I'll be leaving where I'm at and taking my trees with me. So I would rather have them in a state where I can just take them all, put them in a box truck, take them with me, than versus they're all in the ground and someone else gets to benefit from all my pride and joy and coming out here and managing every branch. So one thing I always make sure to do is come in here after planting your trees in pots and going around the edges. That way your water centralizes running down the root ball, not the edge of the pot. So that's something good old Grandpappy taught me when I was a kid. Transplanting into pots, he says, make sure you compact the edges. It's the one step everybody forgets, and it stuck with me for life. And it's the main reason trees do so good in pots, is I've got great success with them as long as the soil's great and the pot you have them in is great. I want to let you guys know, never use fabric pots. I've been doing a test on fabric pots over the last 3 years. They're pots like this, and you can see the edge of the pot is all mossy and growing fungus, and it's just a sign that it's not breathing. And not only is the pot not allowing the root system to breathe, I put it in terrible soil. So that's why I'm out here fixing all the trees that I have that are in terrible soil, and just getting them through a good repotting process. That way they continue to thrive. And in my next video I'll show you guys how to feed the trees, keep them happy and healthy, and yeah, and get into getting all these ones out of their pots and fixed up. So I wanted to show you one of the best ways to check to see if a tree in a pot needs water is look at the edge of the pot, and if it's starting to separate away from the edge of the pot, probably needs water. And also in this pot, the tree needs to be replanted into a bigger pot so it dries out fairly quick. So another way I'm going to show you to check is to pick the pot up. So let's do that next. All you're going to want to do is do a nice good crouch down, lift it up. It's really light, so let me show you how to water. The best way to water a Japanese maple tree or any other tree that's become dry in its pot is to come in here, water it in really good for about 30 seconds to a minute, let it sit for about a minute, and then come back and water it again. There's a hidden half of trees that people don't really take the time to understand, and that's what I wanted to talk about today, was the root system in my trees. And I just want to go over, you know, different forms of root boundness. You know, sometimes you have to get them broken down a lot more than others. Other times you can get away with, depending on how often you repot them, which I don't like repotting my trees more than at least once every 2 years. So you do it too often and it causes the trees to never really grow nice roots, to where, you know, we've got a lot of supportive roots down in here and a lot of matted roots. We've got adventitious roots, which All these little feeder roots and adventitious roots help supply oxygen to not just the root system, but it's like the vascular system of the tree to supply oxygen to the roots and to the canopy. So today we'll talk about signs to look for after transplanting, what to do during transplanting, and when you shouldn't do your transplanting. Right now on this older tree, my Lillian's Jewel, I'm just coming in here and I'm cutting any roots that look like they may wrap around other roots and start to strangle out or suffocate some of the bigger roots. They're called girdling roots, and the girdling roots typically grow due to not teasing the roots ever, so it could end up leading a tree to death in the long run if the tree never had its root flare exposed to make sure it's not girdled. So it's the stuff that I like coming in to do, make sure that everything's growing real nicely, and make sure that your root ball's real wet while you're working with it. You don't want to be working with dry roots. And if you start to notice that the roots are drying out, you can just take it and soak it in a tub for a minute or two, or you can just run a shower setting of water over the roots. And the main deal during the springtime, early springtime, because after you adjust a tree's root system and trim roots, it's going to be trying to go into a stress response where it says, oh my gosh, do I grow new leaves or do I grow new roots? And there's a couple signs of stress you can look for, like transplant shock. The leaves may be drooping or curling, but that's just a sign that you may not have set the tree into some shade. So I usually take my trees after transplanting them and I like putting them into some shade. That helps them recover for the first couple weeks, and as long as they're getting a couple, like maybe say an hour of morning sun or something like that, because you still want them to get a little bit of sunlight, that way they're photosynthesizing, because no sunlight is not good. So come over here, work on this root a little bit. Some of these smaller roots growing right off of the flare, the tree's not going to miss at all. So cutting some of the smaller little lateral roots like this actually stimulates the tree to send that energy to the thicker roots that we want the tree to focus on growing. And when I see dead roots in here, I just come back and cut them back to a point where they're living, and that will promote new root growth on the tips. And you can always tell when a tree's been in a pot for a really long time, because you'll see some dead roots on the tips, which is completely normal because the tree just doesn't have any new soil or new dirt to be able to send new roots into, so it just starts dying off. So that's why coming in here and cutting off some of the roots, even though they may not be fully dead, it's just helping the tree centralize its energy to its living root system. So you don't want to take off too many roots this time of year as the tree's leafing out, but it's definitely good to come in here and do a little bit here, a little bit there, and then come back in, probably not just this winter, but the winter after, and then do some actual, real aggressive root pruning. The way that you can tell your roots are healthy is they're going to have a light color to them. They aren't usually black. Some of the adventitious roots will be kind of darker color because they're holding a lot of the organic matter from the soil inside of the little feeder roots. So you just want to look for nice color to your roots. You want to make sure that you're not scraping the bark away from the roots while you're working on them. And yeah, just tease them real gently, give them a nice massage, and then we're going to get this thing put into a fresh pot. And I think I'm down to like my last 1 or 2 trees. And one of the trees I'm not going to be repotting, but I will be cutting off some roots that are going to be girdling the tree down the road. So the only reason I'm not going to be repotting that tree is because I'm pretty sure it's been repotted recently. I'm just going to be fixing up the root system. One of the things you're going to want to make sure of when you choose your new pot is that it's not too big for the tree, because if it's too big, you know, pots are different than like planting a tree directly into the ground, whereas if you put it directly into the ground, you have a higher chance of the surrounding area absorbing some of the water from the dirt. Whereas when you water these trees in their pots, say the soil that the roots haven't made contact with is a lot wetter than the root ball that the tree has. So definitely want to make sure you don't go too tight on a pot or too big. Too tight will just not allow new dirt to get into the surface area of all the roots. So then you're going to end up doing more harm than good to your tree, thinking, oh, I just put it in a fresh pot. But if the pot's too small for the tree, you're probably going to cause, like I say, a lot more harm than good. Definitely make sure that the pot you're using is the right size for the root ball. Not too big, not too small. And you want to leave a good, I usually leave a good 2 to 3 inches of space between the lip of the pot and the bottom. Especially if you're planting in ceramic pots that have a beveled lip, you're going to want to make sure that you leave the soil level down below the bevel, because if you build the soil up all the way to the bevel, those things are so hard to get out of those ceramic pots. But you can do it without breaking them. It's just very tedious and strategic. So this one's freshly repotted. I've got, I think, one more tree to do, and it's my Siru over there. So I'm going to get that one repotted, get this one watered, and then I'm going to go over, I've got a couple that I've done over the last few weeks. They're looking really good, so I'll show you the signs to look for in trees that are recovering nicely after repotting. So this tree here has some serious girdling roots going on up here at the base, and what's going to end up happening over time is it's going to cause the tree to suffocate right here. It'll strangulate itself. So these roots are very important to cut. We may not cut the largest one, but we're definitely going to be cutting the majority of them, just because we don't want this tree to suffocate over time. So there's one of them. And usually when a tree grows roots that girdle and strangulate its own root system, it's because it was put in the soil too deep. So it's not something that a tree will typically do. It's just that the soil will be too high in the pot, which will then end up causing it to suffocate. So it's good to come in here, cut these roots that could cause the tree to girdle, stop it from happening, and let the tree send its roots deeper down into the soil, because we don't want them right up here at the trunk, the base of the tree. So this one's a pretty big one, but it has to be cut. So I'm just going in here and freeing it. And since I'm cutting these girdling roots, I mean, you can see it was growing in a circle around the trunk. So since I'm doing this to this tree, I'm not going to actually be putting it into a new pot probably until this winter. So just coming in here trying to get rid of those bad roots that we don't want. So and then expose that root flare, which is something that I don't think was ever done. So it's a good example of why you want to tease your roots before you put them in pots, so it doesn't grow roots strangulating the tree out in the long run. This is a tree that came from Costco, so not sure what its history or background is, but I'm here to save it. Sometimes I go into places and I say, I'm here for your worst tree, and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I want your worst looking one, ugliest, unhealthiest, and then I bring it home, make it look real good, and bring it back to life. So the signs you'll want to look for after you do a transplant is nice perky leaves. This is the Aconitafolium I done a couple weeks ago, and it's growing its seeds, which is a really good sign. It's got new growth coming out and just real nice growth standing straight up. It's even sending out some new growth right here from the center over the last week. And here's one of my sensus. Again, you know, it's growing new growth. I did it in the last couple weeks, and we've got all this new growth just perking up real nicely. And they got hit by hail really hard last week, so some of the leaves are a little battered and bruised, but you want to see new lush growth coming out here on the tips.